Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's ceremony. Today we honor Captain William L. Albracht for his act of bravery in Vietnam during the period 28 October to 1 November 1969. Hosting today's ceremony is the Honorable Bobby Schilling, 17th District, Illinois, and Major General Michael Smith, our Deputy Commanding General, 1st Army. Please stand for the singing of the national anthem and remain standing for the invocation by Chaplain Michael Thomas.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I invite you to pray with me. Our Heavenly Father, on this day we stand in grateful acknowledgement of our past history. We thank you for those who have lived and worked to bring us to this present hour. We acknowledge our debt to those of our nation who have given their lives for their country, for freedom, and for justice. May we never forget the value of their sacrifice, nor the nobility of courage, nor the tenacity of endurance, which has purchased us peace, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In these moments, we give you thanks for Captain Albracht's dedication, valor, bravery, acumen, and resolve to not only serve his country, but the wit, strength, and pure grit to lead the men under his charge during grueling days of combat. We ask for your blessing to be upon him and his family as we honor his service both to you and our country. Thank you for blessing our country, and may we be good stewards of the providence that you have given. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
We're pleased that all of you could be with us today, and we extend a very special welcome to Captain Albracht's family and friends, which include Mrs. Mary Albracht, Captain Albracht's wife, Captain Albracht's daughter and son-in-law, Jennifer and Ron Erickson, and Captain Albracht's 3 grandchildren, Megan, Ryan, and Abby. Captain Albrecht's son, Clint Albrecht, and his son, Porter. Captain Albrecht's sister and brother-in-law, Miss Nancy and Mr. Paul Fisher, and their daughter, Karen. Captain Albrecht's brother and sister-in-law, Bob and Nan Albrecht. Captain Albrecht's brother and sister-in-law, Don and Beth Albrecht. And Captain Albrecht's sister and brother-in-law, Mary Beth and Jeff Hickok. In addition, we are fortunate today to be joined by a distinguished guest from the local area, Mr. Patrick Van Nebel, Honorary Consul of Belgium from Moline, Illinois. In addition, we extend a warm welcome to all who have come to help us celebrate this very special occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce Major General Michael Smith.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Representative Schilling, for honoring us with your presence at today's ceremony. And on behalf of Lieutenant General Bednarik, we want to also thank you for answering your unwavering support for our veterans, soldiers, and their families. As I look out in the crowd today, I want to say thanks to those in attendance. Thanks for being here to help us, First Army, Rock Island Arsenal, and our nation recognize and honor not only a great American and a great warrior who, in this humble ceremony, will be receiving a very rare, albeit long-delayed, tribute, his third Silver Star. I was deeply humbled and inspired when I read and heard about the various exploits and heroic actions of Captain Bill Albracht from his dedicated service in Vietnam 43 years ago. A graduate of Rock Island High School in 1967, he enlisted in the Army in infantry in 1968. He was selected for Officer Candidate School and the Special Forces Qualification Course. In August of 1969, he arrived in Vietnam. I just want to pause for a second and think of what was going on in our nation at that point in time, in the summer and fall of 1969. Man had just landed on the moon in July. Richard Nixon was president. People were hearing about Vietnam a little bit more and more, but it really wasn't as active in people's memories as it is today, looking back in hindsight of 2020. Woodstock was just wrapping up. They were still cleaning up from Woodstock. Young William Albrecht had some choices to make back then, and he chose to join the military, to enlist in infantry, to defend our nation, to serve our nation, and that was a decision he made. We always look back as we get a little bit older and get some gray hair about choices that were available to you and the choices that you made. So just reflect upon the choice that he made all those years ago, and now you're going to hear about one story of one period of time in his service in Vietnam. We often say that less than 1% of Americans secure the freedoms and liberty of the other 99%. However, many Americans are drawn to read about the battlefield deeds and exploits of that 1%. In newspapers, magazines, on the web, in books, and increasingly in movies as well. Dare I say that we, America, we have a love affair with heroes. Though sometimes we confuse heroes and celebrities. And more today, I think people see celebrities and call them heroes, and personally I have a little problem with that. Heroes are people who risk their lives to save others. You think soldiers, infantry, in combat. And nowadays, there is no front and rear. So people who serve Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard in harm's way to defend the nation, risk their lives on. They are heroes. But as I look around the room, we have ordinary heroes every day. People who toil, who work hard, serving others to make the nation and the world a better place. In my mind, those are heroes as well, who set that example for the young people of today to continue to make America the great nation that it is and a world leader. At the age of 21, in the fall of 1969, Captain Bill Albracht risked his life multiple times. He was wounded but refused evacuation so he could continue to fight and save the lives of his fellow soldiers and defend our nation, our freedom, and our way of life. Like most soldiers who avoid the spotlight, they don't seek praise, and they bristle at ceremonies just like this one that honor their deeds. And I'm confident that Captain Albracht stands before us a little bit uneasy as we honor his bravery and his sacrifice, which puts him in some rather elite company, someone with a 3rd Silver Star. Even if he refuses to admit that he is a member of that distinguished group, the facts are clear that Captain Albracht has truly earned his 3rd Silver Star for valorous action. He exhibited boundless bravery rarely seen beyond the movies, but his time in Vietnam, specifically October 28 to November 1st, 1969, was his reality as he courageously saved the lives of more than 150 soldiers and South Vietnamese allies. As one of the youngest Special Forces captains at the age of 21, he was serving as an Operational Detachment Alpha, or A-Team, as it's often referred to, executive officer, and commanded a South Vietnamese civilian irregular defense group formation on a remote outpost in South Vietnam named Firebase Kate. On October 28, 1969, the day that Captain Albracht arrived at the firebase, North Vietnamese forces attacked the firebase using combined effects of both infantry and artillery fires, hoping to occupy Kate and the surrounding area as part of a strategy to seize the entire province. Against great odds, and while being greatly outnumbered by the North Vietnamese, Captain Albracht led his soldiers through the first wave of attacks. Let me add a little bit of context. At some point during this period, Bill's force was outnumbered 40 to 1. That's right, 40 to 1. Amazing odds against him and his team. It's not looking good for the home team, 40 to 1. At one point during that initial engagement, Captain Albracht carried a seriously wounded soldier to safety through enemy fire, and then risked his life by directing incoming medical evacuation helicopters while in the open, exposed to enemy fire yet again. At one point, as he exposed himself to enemy fire to wave off approaching medevac helicopters who were vulnerable to the B-40 rockets that were shooting, attempting to destroy the helicopters. A B-40 rocket attack directed against the helicopter resulted in shrapnel wounds to Captain Albracht, wounds for which he refused treatment or evacuation so he could continue to lead the fight. Firebase Kate was running out of water and ammunition after several days and nights of continuous and unrelenting enemy contact, direct and indirect fire from around the perimeter. Hope seemed lost. The beleaguered firebase was down to approximately 150 United States and South Vietnamese soldiers, with the North Vietnamese Army preparing to conduct a final attack to overrun Firebase Kate. Captain Albracht executed orders to evacuate the firebase and move to a more defensible position. He left the firebase on the evening of November 1st, and under the cover of a moonless night, set off into the dense Vietnamese jungle to link up with the 2nd Corps Mobile Strike Force that was 5 kilometers away. For 6 hours, Captain Albracht and his men persevered, plowing through the jungle with the North Vietnamese in hot pursuit. When he reached a wide open clearing, Captain Albracht sensed the military force across the clearing, but he wasn't sure what was waiting on the other side. Was it the friendly forces he was seeking, or was it the North Vietnamese enemy? Remember that during Vietnam, this was not a high-tech war. High-tech was things like a grenade launcher, or Chinook helicopters, spooky gunships as they were called. There were no such things as Blue Force Tracker, global positioning systems, unmanned aerial vehicles where you could just make a phone call, hit some satellites, and then get a good view of where you are. This was kind of the low-tech, the old-fashioned way. Captain Albracht refused to send anyone else forward, and in a brave and selfless act, he proceeded across that open field alone, and he was able to determine that that was in fact friendly forces. Again, the enemy was closing in from the other side, so he had to negotiate back across that field to link up with his forces. He led them through the clearing to link up with Task Force Mike. But they still weren't out of the woods yet. They still had several hours to go as they moved through the jungle with that task force to get to Buprang. Fortunately, they made it safely as a direct result of Captain Albracht's courageous acts, excellent tactical skills, and his willingness to take charge of a desperate situation and keep his calm and resolve throughout. What a remarkable achievement. It is truly an honor for me to stand in the presence of this man who accomplished this feat. The Silver Star is awarded for gallantry in action against an enemy of the United States. After hearing the description of what Captain Albracht did during those 6 days in Vietnam, we know this recognition is going to a most worthy recipient. Many hard-charging and stellar soldiers will finish their careers without having earned our nation's third highest military award, the Silver Star. To refresh your memory, this impressive warrior we honor today has earned 3 Silver Stars. In addition to 3 Purple Hearts suffered for wounds against the combat enemy, and 5 Bronze Star medals. Truly, truly a brave, courageous warrior we are honoring today. This clearly shows his distinguished personal courage, leadership, honor, and sense of duty while under enemy fire. By receiving more than 2 Silver Stars, Captain Albracht joins an elite group which includes some of our nation's greatest warriors, such as former General of the Army Douglas MacArthur and Colonel David Hackworth. Colonel Albracht, one of Quad City's own, is in exclusive company. And I am truly honored to participate in this award ceremony in his honor. I appreciate the opportunity to stand here and share with you the extraordinary deeds and actions of this great warrior, one of our own, and I challenge you to learn more about Captain Albracht to better understand the actions this Silver Star represents. On behalf of a grateful nation and all the grateful soldiers and Vietnamese allies with whom he served and demonstrated such superior courage under fire all those years ago. Thank you for joining us here today. First indeed. It is my honor now to present Congressman Schilling.
Good morning. It's truly an honor to be here with just an awesome man. As I was getting ready to leave this morning, I noticed my son Samuel, he didn't know what he was going to do today. I said, hey son, I said, you want to go see some heroes? I said, there's one you'll get to see that is a pretty great guy and you'll recognize him. But, you know, I've got to say, you know, when I came into this seat in the Illinois 17th District, said I'd fight for the veterans to get them what they deserve. And what I find is interesting and humbling to me, Captain, is that one of my final events is going to be here with you today, and there is no higher honor for me to have than to do that. Also, Bill, Mr. New Nguyen Thuy, President of the Vietnamese Community Association of the Quad Cities, wants to congratulate you on this honor today. And let me start by saying we're here today really to honor a Special Forces Captain William L. Albracht for his extraordinary and heroic acts more than 43 years ago in Vietnam. Heck, I was 5 years old. I was in kindergarten. I had to throw that in. Captain Albracht put his life on the line while serving our country. He served under perilous circumstances in Vietnam and in a political, divisive time in this nation. In the field, Captain Albracht and many other brave American soldiers faced a fanatical and elusive military enemy. At the same time, they contended with unprecedented social, moral, and political upheavals across America. Bitter and unreasoning opposition to the war and the men who fought it spread like a virus from Capitol Hill to the streets of our cities. What makes his heroism especially worthy of our honor today is that Captain Albracht performed his heroic deeds during this era of national unrest. For 6 days, while defending a remote U.S. outpost known as Firebase Kate against non-stop attacks by the North Vietnamese Army, Captain Albracht saved the lives of 150 U.S. and Allied soldiers. Think about that for a minute. That is so, just unbelievable. Because there's 150 people that this man saved, that passed on generation after generation, that we'll never know who's here amongst us or throughout this great nation, either figuring out some type of an invention, saving other lives, or what have you. He led his surviving troops to safety, passing through enemy lines in the dead of night and walking miles through trackless jungles to safety. Captain Albracht did all that in spite of his own wounds. We heard of how he was letting the helicopters go. He didn't want to be evacuated. He had bigger and better things to do. You know, a hero truly is somebody that says, hey, my life, I've got other lives to save. If I go down saving these guys, that's okay. That's a hero. In spite of the North Vietnamese pursuing his men, he got them through the jungle. His actions, ladies and gentlemen, reflect the bravery and self-sacrifice and loyalty that made this nation great and will keep this nation great for our children. Let's not forget that after he was wounded, he could have been medevaced out to safety, but instead he chose to stay and lead his men. Because of Captain Albracht, over 150, I say it again, Allied combatants lived to fight another day. And of the 28 U.S. soldiers who were among them, we have had the good fortune to locate several of them who were present during the dark days of this ordeal. They had much to say about the man we honor today. And I've got a couple of quotes directly from these folks, and I just want to kind of touch base on these. Artilleryman Robert Johnson: I owe my life to the bravery and courageous action displayed by Captain Albracht during this perilous episode. In the late afternoon on November the 1st, 1969, our situation appeared hopeless. Despite the extraordinary efforts of Captain Albracht since his arrival a few days early on October the 28th, there seemed to be little likelihood that any of us would be able to escape from Kate without being killed or captured by the NBA. We placed our lives in Captain Albracht's hands and hoped for the best. We were all prepared to die before midnight on November the 1st. We were all prepared to die before midnight on November the 1st. Then there's Artilleryman Nelson Coon. It is my true belief if Captain Albracht had not been with us and let us off LZK, none of us that were there would have survived. His calmness under fire, leadership, courage, and heroic actions were instrumental to all of us. And then there's Mr. Ken Hopkins. He stated his opinion as follows: I truly believe that if the officer that Captain Albracht replaced on October the 28th had remained there, I would not be here to write this. There is not one week that goes by without my thinking of him and his saving of our lives. You can ask the other artillerymen who were on the Firebase that day what they think of Captain Albracht and the man, and they have the same feelings about him. Mr. Ken Hopkins, by the way, also has a funny story. Vietnam veterans will understand that he spells his first name with 2 N's. It's Ken, K-E-N-N, instead of just one. And when he was asked why, he says that when he returned home from Vietnam, he was called so many 4-letter words that he simply changed the spelling of his first name. But perhaps the most ironic thing about our reason for gathering here today is that every soldier who survived the siege and evacuation of Fire Support Base Kate received an award for valor, except for Captain Albracht. As it turns out, though, the explanation for this is yet another example of Bill's self-sacrificing nature. If you've known Bill for any time at all, then you know that the biggest obstacle to honoring Bill Albracht is Bill Albracht himself. Soon after the Kate evacuation, you see, the commanding general of the 2 Corps Tactical Zone arranged a ceremony to present an impact award to Captain Albracht. Despite the high winds that had grounded all other helicopters, including medevacs, for that day, the general dispatched a helicopter to the Special Forces camp at Boo Prang to bring Bill to the ceremony. But as Bill's helicopter landed and he prepared to board it, he learned that 4 U.S. soldiers had been gravely wounded in a recent firefight but could not be airlifted to a hospital because of the high winds. Without hesitation, Captain Albracht asked his pilots to take the wounded with him and stop at a field hospital before taking him to the award ceremony. But by the time the pilots had delivered those wounded men to the distant field hospital and brought Captain Albracht to the site of the ceremony, the commanding general, who had waited as long as he could, had departed for his next obligation. And so it was, Captain Albracht's concern for his wounded countrymen caused him to completely miss the award ceremony, which was never rescheduled. But Vietnam wasn't the end of the captain's story. Home from the war with absolutely no welcome back, his desire to serve his country remained. It was this burning spark of pure patriotism that led him to embark on a long career in the United States Secret Service, where he protected and defended our nation's leaders against those who prefer anarchy and assassination to the rule of the law. Nor did Captain Albracht forget his comrades in arms after the war. Heck, he's been one of the Vietnam veterans' go-to guy here in the Quad Cities for quite some time, over a decade, I believe. He was also recognized by the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 299 in 2010, as the Member and Volunteer of the Year. However, Bill will tell you that his proudest achievement was being a single parent for 10 years of his 3 kids, who today I believe are all here. And they're all productive members of this society. Captain Albracht's commitment to patriotism and public service led him to run for office this year as a candidate for the Illinois State Senate, to lead his native state back to safety, just as he led his soldiers to safety in Vietnam. Let us always remember that he did none of these things by compulsion. Like so many of our veterans, Captain Albracht volunteered to serve both as a soldier and a citizen. In many ways, therefore, Captain William L. Albracht is a model of all that is both admirable and sacred to our Quad City community. A native of Rock Island and now a citizen of Moline, let's remember that his transcendent heroism in battle also makes him a citizen of a far, far higher realm. And that is the realm of courage and self-sacrifice for which we honor him today. That, ladies and gentlemen, is why we have assembled here today, to bestow 43 years worth of overdue honor on this American patriot. This brave soldier, this friend of ours, a shining example of heroism and leadership, Captain William L. Albracht, United States Army Special Force. God bless you, Bill.
Congressman Schilling, General Smith, if I could ask you to please come forward. And now invite Captain and Mrs. Albracht to join our officials. At this time, General Smith and Congressman Schilling will present the Silver Star to Captain Albracht. The certificate for the Silver Star Medal reads as follows. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress 9 July 1918, amended by Act 25 July 1963, has awarded the Silver Star to Captain William L. Albracht, 5th Special Forces Group Airborne, for gallantry in action from 28 October 1969 to 1 November 1969 during combat operations against an armed enemy of the United States. As Executive Officer, Detachment A, 236, Company Bravo, 5th Special Forces Group Airborne, 1st Special Forces, while in the Republic of Vietnam. Captain Albracht's calm and reassuring leadership as an officer in charge of Fire Support Base Kate enabled his forces to successfully withstand the initial waves of enemy attacks. The following day, with complete disregard for his own safety, Captain Albracht moved under intense enemy fire, carrying a wounded soldier to safety and directing incoming medevac helicopters. Despite his shrapnel wounds, Captain Albracht refused evacuation and continued to lead his soldiers in fighting enemy forces and ultimately withdrawing from the base. Over the period of 6 hours, Captain Albracht and his soldiers evaded enemy forces while moving through the jungle under the cover of darkness to meet United States forces at the rescue position. Captain Albracht's bravery, self-sacrifice, and exceptional tactical skill enabled the defenders of Fire Support Base Kate to not only defend their position until the last possible moment, but also successfully escape prior to being overrun. Captain Albracht's accomplishments are in keeping with the finest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, the 5th Special Forces Group Airborne, and the United States Army. Mrs. Albracht, Congressman Schilling, General Smith, you may now be seated. It's a great privilege to now introduce Captain William L. Albracht.
Thank you. Hope I can get through this. I am deeply honored that everybody took time out to come to this. This is pretty incredible to stand up here. After 43 years. I got a couple things I want to say, and I'll be brief. But first and foremost, I want to recognize an individual that was here, that is here, that was with me during those days. And that's Lieutenant John Kerr. John, where are you? John, please stand up. Please. John is a very, very good man and a very brave man, and we literally none of us really thought we were going to see the light of day. This was, to quote, "Uncommon valor was a common virtue." This epitomizes the defenders, all the defenders of Firebase Kate. From October 28th through the escape on the evening of November 1st and then into November 2nd was a living and unending perdition. As I reflect back on it now in my memory, it becomes clearer. Believe it or not, it becomes clearer. And my sense is keener, and I can almost smell the cordite in the air. I have never felt that I was needed more, nor have I ever been more scared. I was sent to do a specific mission, but a new and more important mission had suddenly and unexpectedly evolved. I was now to lead 150 odd souls to safety, since surrender was never an option. I did not volunteer for this assignment, but it was thrust upon me by circumstances. Once I realized what fate had charged me to do, no power in heaven nor earth would prevent me from delivering these men out of harm's way, or I would die trying. I truly, and John will attest to this, I truly do not know how we made it through or how we made it out that night, and I am not ruling out divine intervention. Although I do not dwell on it nowadays, it does come to mind more times than I care to admit. A smell, a sound, a turn of phrase, and we are right back there again. At this time, I'd like to read a quote from Michael Norman, United States Marine Corps, retired. It is one that I read at the memorial service for Lieutenant Ron Ross, who was with us on Kate, and who died on Kate. But it speaks to veterans everywhere, past, present, and into the future. And here's how it goes. I now know why men who have been to war yearn to reunite. Not to tell stories or look at old pictures, not to laugh or weep on one another's knees. Comrades together because they long to be with men who once acted their best. Men who suffered and sacrificed and who were stripped raw, right down to their humanity. I did not pick these men. They were delivered to me by fate in the United States Marine Corps. But I know them in a way I know no other men. I have never since given anyone such trust. They were willing to guard something more precious than my life. They would have carried my reputation, the memory of me, with them. It was part of the bargain. We all made the reason we were willing to die for one another. I cannot say where we are headed. Ours are not perfect friendships. Those are the providence of legend and myth. We are a few of my comrades drift far away from now and then, sending back an occasional word. I know that one day even these could fall silent. Some of the men will stay close, a couple perhaps always at hand. As long as I have a memory, I will think of them every day. I am sure that when I leave this world, my last thoughts will be of my family and my comrades. They were such good men. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and God bless everyone here.